Hello everyone, Sam here, and we gotta talk about A History of Iran, Empire of the Mind. This was a nonfiction history written by Michael Axworthy, and it was published in 2008. Axworthy is a British scholar on Iranian history and Arabic studies. He was part of an association that studies Arabic. What is it? The Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter in England. And he also served in the British Foreign Service. And yeah, so he had a lot of experience regarding Iran and Arabia. And this book is essentially Axworthy giving a basic history of Iran as a nation, stretching back to the prehistoric times up to the modern day, or then modern day, because like I said, this book was written in 2008. I kind of became interested in this book because for those that aren't paying attention, the Iran and the United States is having a bit of a spat right now. And so when Operation Epic Fury started, I wanted to kind of gain a wider knowledge of the country because I had a little bit of knowledge regarding Iran from some people I've talked with. In my area, there actually is an Iranian American association. So I knew a little bit about Iran, but learning about Operation Epic Fury, I kind of realized, well, I actually don't know a huge amount about Iran, just sort of bits and pieces. So I was like, well, let me look for a book that will give me like a good, decent overview of the country, like as a good starting point, just to learn the general history of Iran. And so I was looking up the books most people recommended as a resource to learn about Iran, and this book came up quite often in the searches I was looking at, and my local library had a copy. So I went, all right, I get to learn about Iran, and I get to do a booktube episode. The booktube episode was not the main goal. The main point was to learn about Iran and just look at their history. So that was what this book's main goal was. So I was happy to get it. So we'll be talking about this and explain what it works and what doesn't. In regards to what works, I would say that overall it does a very good job at giving a general overview of Iranian history, both pre-Islam and post-Islam. I really liked a lot of the stuff about ancient Iran and Persia, especially stuff with like Cyrus the Great. Cyrus was a Persian emperor who had this like great expanse. He made like one of the biggest Persian empires ever, and he's somewhat famous among Judaism because Cyrus the Great, I believe, conquered the Babylonians who had enslaved the Jews at the time, and he was called Cyrus the Great by the Jews because Cyrus allowed them to go back to Judea, which the Babylonians had forbid. And I had sort of heard about Cyrus growing up. He was sort of mentioned in some of the Old Testament Sunday school studies, but this book gave me a better knowledge of who he was. I also liked the section about Queen Zenobia. And Queen Zenobia was, I'm not sure if she was 100% Persian, but she was connected to the Persian Empire, and she was actually someone who resisted Roman rule when the Romans were like steamrolling everyone. And she sadly lost, but the history of Iran makes it clear that she still held in well regard in Iran and I think Syria. But yeah, it's a very interesting historical figure. It also talks about the Mongol invasions and how that affected Iran. This was something I didn't know. It talks about the joint invasion of Iran by the British and the Soviet Union during World War II, because the Shah at the time, he was sort of ambiguous about his alignment. There were some people who thought he was pro-Nazi. Some people have disputed that, but the whole point was that the British and the Soviets invaded Iran so that Hitler could not have a possible ally to attack the British forces in the Middle East, because the British would have had a lot of trouble fighting on two fronts. And the Soviets also wanted to make sure there wasn't a back door to sneak through the Caucasus, because at that point Operation Barbarossa had started and Germany was invading Russia, and they too did not want a second front coming in from their south. So it was very interesting to learn that Persia and Iran had actually been invaded in World War II. But apparently the invasion only took a week, and the Shah didn't put up much of a resistance. So that's why it hasn't garnered much attention in history books. So that was a very cool thing to learn. Not cool in that it happened, but just sort of neat that I managed to learn something new about Iran's history. I also think the book does a good job at discussing the influence of religion within Iran. Obviously, with the notorious reputation of Iran's religiousness over the last few decades, this was kind of a touchy subject, but I think Axworthy does a good job talking about the different influences of religion that have occurred within Iran, not just Shia Islam, but also things like Zoroastrianism, and how other religions like Christianity and Judaism sort of influenced Iran, even if they were never the most prevalent religions. He even talks about like some of these smaller religious sects that popped up. Like I think one was called Manichaeism, something like that. It was kind of a mishmash of different beliefs like Zoroastrianism, Christianity, Buddhism, and just a whole mishmash of stuff. It was a religion heavily focused on purity. And Axworthy kind of talks about how that focus on purity sort of extended to other religions. And also just how religion is very intersected in Iran, and how every single major revolution basically came about from religious discontent, whether it was in Islam or the earlier religions. I also really liked how he gives a lot of good examples of Iranian literature. There's a lot of interesting works of Iranian literature that he lists. The big one he mentions is the Shahnameh. The Shahnameh, which was apparently the big Iranian national epic. It's considered a big deal in Iran. And he gives a lot of other smaller examples. Some are well known, some are not as well known, but they're very interested in that respect. And I really found it fascinating that he gives such a list of Iranian writers, especially poets, because apparently poets are really big in Iran. They're a big part of the Iranian culture. So that stuff was very, very neat to learn about. So to talk about what doesn't work as well, I kind there's no nice way to sugarcoat this, but Axworthy does have a certain amount of bias for this. Uh, Obviously, that's not necessarily a new thing with any nonfiction writing. If you've seen my last video, I talk about how it was for a book called Daughter of the Dragon. It talks about how the author for that book kind of downplays communist China atrocities because it's not a wise thing to besmirch the communist Chinese government right now. And in this case, I don't think it's so much that Axworthy's worried about offending anyone, as much as that he just has sort of general biases that can sometimes hinder the points he's trying to make. Some of them are just sort of odd. Like he goes on this one weird tangent about how Alexander the Great, when he was conquering Persia, he was doing it in a way that was very feminine, and thus he had to be bisexual. If that sounds like a weird thing to talk about, yeah, it's just as weird in this book when he brings it up too. Like, just out of nowhere, he goes, "Oh yes, Alexander the Great. He used his femininity to win his battles, and this solidifies that he's bisexual." And it's like, where did that come from? Like it comes out of nowhere, and it's kind of like, oh, it's kind of like Axworthy was just saying, "Oh, I'm talking about Alexander the Great when he conquered Persia. I'm going to bring up this aside about Alexander's gender beliefs, gender tendencies." I don't know what the phrase is, but it kind of comes out of nowhere, and it's like, what's that about? Fortunately, there's not too many tangents like that, but there are a couple, and that was the one that stood out to me because it was just like, well, that's a weird thing to bring up. There's also kind of a thing where Axworthy writes himself into a corner because he routinely espouses in this book that, oh, the Shia Muslims are not as oppressive as the media has led you to believe. They are very tolerant because they too have been oppressed and they know the sensations. And any time where under a Shia Muslim regime that oppression happens, that's an aberration. It doesn't happen normally. But the problem is there are multiple points in the story where, like clockwork, the Shia Muslims will oppress Jews, Christians, and other religious groups, and it happens so often that it becomes kind of comedic every time Axworthy says, "Oh, the Shia Muslims are not oppressive. They would never do this," and then 2 or 3 pages later they oppress everybody. And he, like I said, he tries to portray it as an abnormality, but when it keeps happening, it's kind of like, is it a bug or a feature? You know? So he's really, I think he's trying to play nice with Iran because he does have connections to Iran, but it eventually kind of gets to the point of like, yeah, dude, there's some issues with that belief system you may want to point out. And the other thing is that my other major criticism is that he frequently frames British and American actions as more negative than Iranian ones. Like, there was that controversy when the American destroyer shot down the Iranian passenger jet, and he goes into big detail with that, like, oh, this is what happened, this what happened, this what happened. But he's like weirdly dismissive of the Iranian hostage crisis when the Iranians kidnapped the American embassy workers. Like he kind of just breezes by it. And so it's just this weird thing where he really wants to be judicious towards the Iranians and not make them up to be like the insane religious extremists they're portrayed as, but he has to sort of make the British and Americans look as bad as possible without bringing up what Iran has done. So it's a very lopsided affair in that respect. The other problem that this book had, and this was a big one for me, is that it downplays a lot of the post 1979 Iranian Revolution crimes, the crimes that regime has done against their citizens. It really downplays them. Like, it mentions some of them, but it frames it very much as like, oh yeah, this is bad, but you know, it's not as bad as like what the Shah did and right before the revolution. And you can sort of tell that it's lopsided because he gives like these very specific numbers of all the crimes the Shah has did, but he's rather vague about what the post revolution Iran regime has done. Like, there's a lot of vagaries. Like, he'll admit bad stuff is happening, but he'll be very vague about like what actually is happening. Like it's like when you're admitting you've done something wrong, but you phrase it in such a way that it's kind of not your. It's kind of vague. You're not sure what's been done wrong. Like, you're trying to sort of shield your wrongdoings, and that kind of feels like this point in the last two chapters, where Axworthy is trying really hard to not make the Iranian religious extremists look like religious extremists, and because of that, he kind of has to downplay all of the crimes they've done against their own citizens. So, and the other thing I have an issue with is that this book in some way has not aged well, because obviously this was written in 2008, so some things are not going to be up to date. But some of the takes he has in here have aged poorly. Like, he portrays it as if like America and Britain are like the raving nut jobs who won't do anything to make peace with Iran. Like, he says, oh, Iran extended an olive branch after 9/11 and George W. Bush slapped it away. It's like, I understand why he has that perspective, and it's probably a correct perspective. That's probably what happened. But it's kind of a thing of, from 2008, we've now learned that Iran has been heavily funding many terrorist groups, and during Arab Spring, and within the last year, they've been massacring thousands of their own citizens. And the way Axworthy depicts them in here, it depicts the regime as like, oh yeah, they're very stern, they do some bad things, but you know, life goes on. It's like, yeah, tell that to the demonstrators who just got mowed down by the Iranian Republican Guard. So this is kind of, the way I would frame is that this book is very much coming from that post 9/11 perspective, where there were a lot of American, British, and Western scholars who are really trying to say, hey, don't be so mean to the Islamic nations. They have a very fascinating history. You guys need to calm down. They have this interesting culture. Like, take it easy on them. And I think that was a noble goal at the time, and I think it is still noble to try and promote dialogue between different cultures, but it's just the problem is it's with modern day, looking at it from the perspective of modern day Iran, who have massacred their own citizens, funded numerous terrorist groups who have caused misery across the world, and have started using their own people as meat shields. That's not as good. That makes the portrayal of here of like the portrayal of Iran in here is like this like slightly unhinged neighbor who you just need to talk to and sort things out. I'm not sure I'm as generous with that regarding Iran today. Like reading this today compared to how Iran is was back then and how Iran is today. Yeah, I'm not seeing the Iran Michael Axworthy is talking about. It's in a lot of ways 2008 Iran might be as different to today's Iran as it was in 1978 before the revolution. So it's a dated book in that respect. So some of that can't be avoided. Books are always going to age, but I think Axworthy's optimism regarding Iran it's a little misplaced, and given the fact that he kind of has to demonize other people in order to make or other nations to make Iran look good, I don't know. It just sort of comes off as optimism that has not aged very well. So that's kind of a bummer about this book. Some of which Axworthy couldn't control, obviously, because you can't control the future. But yeah, just some of the last few chapters of this where he's trying to portray the Iranian regime under the mullahs is like, oh, they're a little behind the times, but we can bring them forward. It's like, yeah, seeing what they've done to their own citizens these days, I'm not as big an optimist in that respect. So the final ranking for Empire of the Mind. I would give this a solid 2 out of 5, which in my parlance is a painfully average book. It's a decent enough primer to understanding Iran, but it's filled with enough of Axworthy's biases and some perspectives that are kind of out of date that it kind of hinders the book as a whole. It has very good intentions. I do applaud Axworthy for trying to talk about Iran's history and try to promote a dialogue. But the problem with the dialogue is that two people have to actually talk. This is just one of those books that I think time has not been as kind to it, but it is very good intentioned. So I would say I would recommend this book for anyone who is unfamiliar with Iran, because this book did succeed in its main goal of letting me learn more about Iran and see what its unique history is. So in that respect, it succeeds. It's when it tries to get into the political element of saying, "Oh, America and Europe, why are you so unfair towards Iran, towards modern day Iran?" It's kind of like there's a couple of reasons. Again, this is not an anti-Iranian thing. This is an anti-Iranian government thing for me. I just do not like the way they've treated their own citizens and citizens of other nations. And I think Axworthy gives them a little too much leeway here than I think that the Iranian government deserves. So, but if you do want to learn more about Iran, I think this is a good primer, so you should check it out. But I don't think it's a useful book for anyone else. I don't think it's going to work as much for other people. So get it. So check it out if you're unfamiliar with Iran. But otherwise, I don't think it's worth checking out. Any inspiration? For those that don't know, I am a working writer. And one of the things I like doing with this booktube is talking about the books that I've read and how they inspire my own writing. Because I feel like a lot of booktubers who are writers don't always talk about how books influence them, or how they how what they read might inspire stuff they write. So I always like talking about whether a book I've talked about has inspired me in any way. And I would say this book has inspired me in my writing, because I really want to do a story now about one of those historical Persian figures that were mentioned here, like Cyrus the Great, Zenobia, maybe Abbas the Great. I'm really interested in looking into them more closely and seeing if I could do a story talking about them. It's definitely interesting to read about them as historical figures, so there could be an interesting story to be told there using them. Yeah, so that is all I have to say about Empire of the Mind. I hope you all found this interesting. I hope that the Iranian situation will be dealt with as peacefully as possible. I hope no more people have to be hurt and killed. I hope that there can be a resolution where people stop being hurt and the Iranian people can live free lives. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I hope things turn out okay for everybody. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but I can hope. Let us do our best to end this nasty situation, and let's recognize the importance of Iran as a culture. So, thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I will see you again soon. Bye.